Attention, all Heartslebule! I am going to be twisting my Wonderland tonight, so I hope you are all ready. That goes to you too, Ace, and you, Deuce. Don't think I don't see you. I see you, and you're gonna get it. You're gonna get in trouble. Because I am Riddles Roseheart, and I am here to read my book! It's called Twisted Wonderland, Rose Red Tyrant, the novel. Written by Jun Hioki. Original concept and illustrations by Yana Toboso. Also, yeah, it has illustrations, so sadly you guys won't be able to see that, but just pretend that you can. Also, it says on the back, it's like a hand holding up a little heart candy thing with some roses in the back. You can see that the roses were painted. One of the roses is only partially painted. So, book. Reading book. Throlin claims first. Hello, Mr. Throlin. Good to see you. I hope you are doing good. I hope you're ready for some twisted action while you perhaps are gaming or maybe working. I actually don't know what you're doing today, but hopefully you enjoy. And Stick claims second. Hello, Stick. I'm noticing a suspicious lack of that old guy to claim third or fourth, actually, because it was Mr. Aru who got third and said, "Who up, twistin' they Wonderland?" Yes. So, we will be twisting our Wonderland in a new way. We'll be reading a book. So I'm going to turn off the background music so that you may listen to this as an audio book. Just take it as just me reading this book. All right, opening the first page here. What? It says, meet the curiouser and curiouser students. What the heck? That old guy is here and he says, I should be grounded. I think that's a hint as to what you were doing. That last word there, grounded. You just told on your own self, that old guy. How dare you? How dare you miss my Keaton stream for some grounded game? And yes, you are late, that old guy. 50 demerits will be taken from Heartslebule. Yo, I love Twisted Wonderland so much. It's Fastra. She is here. I was worried she wasn't going to make it. But Twisted Wonderland stream was not complete without Fastra. If I open the first page, it's Overblot Riddle, and he's all like, grrr. And it's like a fold-out poster that you can like fold out. I'm sure you already have seen it, but I didn't know about it. But it's cool. All right, let me read this little preface thing on the inner corner. You're the fastest Fastra ever! Meet the curiouser and curiouser students of Night Raven College in Disney Twisted Wonderland, Rose Red Tyrant. When Yuya Kuroki is transported to the mysterious academy for the magically gifted, he must navigate a colorful cast of characters as he searches for a way home. There's just one problem. No one knows where his home is. Yuya quickly realizes he's in over his head, stranded in a magical world filled with ghosts, monsters, fire-breathing cats, and bickering classmates. Without any magical ability of his own, Yuya must struggle to find his place in this Twisted Wonderland. Inspired by the classic Disney movie Alice in Wonderland, and based on the popular mobile game Disney Twisted Wonderland, Rose Red Tyrant features an original concept by famed manga artist Yana Toboso, creator of Black Butler. And it has a picture of Alice and then the Queen of Hearts. I'm going to turn off my fan just in case you guys can hear it. Don't want to risk it because, this whole thing is like about audio. It's just about my voice. So got to make sure my voice is being transmitted perfectly clear. All right. You couldn't hear it? Okay, that's good. I might turn it back on then. I was getting a little hot. I'll turn it on for now. Hydrate on it. Part 1, Welcome to the Villain's World. Part 2, Rose Red Tyrant. And that's on page 158. So it is split into two parts. Apparently the Rose Red Tyrant doesn't begin until page 158, according to this. Dear listeners, have to hydrate as well. Yes, you may. You may hydrate along with me. You are certainly welcome to. Printed in Canada. Ah, my dear, esteemed benefactor, my proud, beautiful flower of evil, you are truly the fairest one of all. O magic mirror, thy wisdom I entreat, reveal unto me the visage that I seek. You did hydrate that old guy? Alright, so I don't know what that means, but that was the first page. Smoke snaked from the mountain of debris. Thick like rain clouds, it puffed upward to blanket the sky. Fire had raised everything in the area, and anything that escaped the flames had been torn down by windstorms. Amid the wreckage, an iron window frame drooped, reminiscent of a withered plant stalk. Fissures cracked open the ground, and treetops still stretched outward. All traces of the building's former majesty were gone. The sight was so dreadful that it would have been easier to accept the idea that this had always been a wasteland, and that the time we'd spent there had been an illusion. Ashes blew through the air. The wind swept up fragments of glass and pebbles that dug into my skin, prickling, stinging. I somehow managed to wrench my eyelids open, though they tried to stay shut to protect my eyes. The first thing I saw was the blue flame. Burning up the dust and sending sparks scattering, the fire shimmered and licked the sky. When I looked closely into the flames, I could see eyes blazing brightly, protruding nostrils panting raggedly, fangs as large as my face. Before my eyes was a beast so large I could tilt my head back until it ripped clean off and still not see the end of it. The beast's hideous face twisted into a fearsome snarl as it howled. Something moved in the corner of my eye. A person. And not just one. People in black robes dotted the scorched earth. Cowled hoods hid their eyes, and they shouted desperately. But I couldn't catch a word of it. The beast's jaw dropped, and its legs shook, unsteady once more. Neither could I hear the howl so loud and intense, it shook the very earth itself. More intense than any of that was a voice whispering intently in my mind. The time left to me, to them, to you, is short. You must not let go of that hand. Oh yeah, hey, welcome in! How you doing? I'm reading Twisted Wonderland. That was like a little preface thing. And that old guy said, "Raw!" Yeah, did you like it? It was, I think that was pretty good. Hello to you. I hope you are doing good. I just started the book, by the way, so if you'd like to listen. Part 1. Welcome to the Villain's World. A hooded figure stretched a hand out toward him. He had to take it. He knew this instinctively, without any conscious thought, but for some curious reason, he couldn't move. The monster before him grinned. Is this who I think it is? I can't do the voice if it's not him. Hold on. It's not saying. It has to be him, right? What was that sound? Yuya Kuroki suddenly felt like something was off.
I better find that uniform before someone spots me.
The voice sounded amused and a little inane. Someone was laughing and humming to themselves. The happy-go-lucky feel of it was draining just to listen to, and there was a weariness enveloping his entire body, like a soak in a lukewarm bath. He wasn't the least bit on edge. I feel like the total opposite of how I did a minute ago, he thought. I mean, that whole thing earlier was... Huh? Wait, what whole thing? He could remember being frightened, sad, but he couldn't really remember why or what had troubled him. Like a crumbling sandcastle, the more he tried to grab hold of the memory, the hazier the details became. In the time it took to blink, he'd forgotten all of it. Yes, the Grimster, that old guy. It didn't say, but I mean, he's the only one who says "Myaha." It has to be him, right? Well, that's how it is with dreams. Oh, huh. I guess this is a dream, too. He heard the carefree voice again, much closer this time.
Okay, this is the one. This guy right here.
If this is a dream, then I really wish you'd keep your voice down. I'm still pretty sleepy. This place is so soft, warm, and comfortable. It's like I'm inside a giant hug or something. Just having his eyes closed gave him the ultimate sense of security. He'd never dozed like this before, and was quite certain that he would have the best dreams of his life if he could just fall completely asleep. As Yuya dozed and started to drift off, the world around him began to shake violently back and forth. What is that? He opened his eyes and was surprised again, as he could see nothing, only darkness. A darkness so complete that his eyes did not adjust to it, even after a minute or two. He didn't even know whether he was standing or sitting or lying down. He tried to shift, but discovered he couldn't move the way he wanted to. If he bent his legs the tiniest bit, his knees bumped up against something. It was the same with his arms and head. He was apparently locked up somewhere, and that somewhere was a very small space. Yes, Cookie Guy, inside a giant hug. Pastor says, I can't fully pay attention since I'm driving downtown and it's raining. But I'm still listening. I'll watch the stream again when I'm home and have the book in front of me so I can fully comprehend. Alright, Fastra. I'm sorry to hear that you're not only downtown, but it's raining. I hope it goes good. I hope it's not too terrible, but it really doesn't sound like a good combination there of factors. And yeah, the VOD will be up on YouTube soon. So yeah, you could definitely read it or listen to me and read it along at home. Stick. Yes, that's faster in the rain. The gentle embrace changed into firm restraint. Fear rose up inside him, and his palms grew damp with sweat. He heard the voice again.
This little waste of time. Maybe I can smash it with something?
Bang! Bang! The shaking grew more violent, and his forehead slammed into something. Then the back of his head smashed into something too, over and over. The repeated collisions were making him dizzy. What on earth was happening?
No good, huh? Well, I ain't giving up so easy as that.
Yuya held his breath. What terrible fate awaited him next?
Try this on for size.
He thrust his hands forward at the same time as the voice laughed. He had to get out of there right that second. Lorky's time. See you next stream, Keaton. Alright, see ya, Alia. Thanks for stopping by. It was nice to see you.
Ow!
He cried out when something hard whacked him. It was the ground. He felt queasy, like his brain was rolling around inside his skull. He pressed his hands to the cold stone beneath him and staggered to his feet. Where am I? He wondered, and his voice echoed oddly. He had apparently fallen into a large space. He confirmed that he could move his arms and legs again and felt a wave of relief wash over him. His surroundings were so dimly lit that his eyes adjusted easily to the gloom, even though he had just come from a pitch-black place. Maybe it was already nighttime. Yuya looked up and saw stars above him, just as he had expected, but they were swinging wildly, strange somehow. When he looked harder, he realized they were not stars and the moon, but rather the components of a chandelier. Decorative drops shimmered like opals, illuminated by small candles. The light was rather subdued for how big the chandelier was. The candles looked like they would go out at the slightest breeze, and he felt anxious just looking at them. He used the light they shed to examine his surroundings. He was standing in what appeared to be a narrow hallway. And though the gloom meant that he couldn't tell what was ahead of him, there were black boxes on either side of him. Hundreds of them. "Are these coffins?" he murmured. The boxes were hexagonal, with long sides tugged out a bit. They looked exactly like coffins. Silver keyholes adorned the polished black lids. He could tell just by looking at them that the boxes were heavy, and they were just big enough for a single person to fit inside, in line with their supposed purpose. They were lined up in rows, crammed in on either side of the hall. Is this a graveyard? But then Yuya frowned, perplexed. All the coffins were bobbing up and down, as if they were having a truly great time. From a certain angle, it almost looked like they were dancing. He had no idea what the mechanism was, but if there was something inside of them, then the dancing was in pretty poor taste. While he eyed the bobbing coffins dubiously, he noticed that the one next to him was different from all the others. It had no lid, and it was empty inside. The black fabric lining looked soft and sleek, but he absolutely could not bring himself to touch it. As he looked around, he spotted the lid on the ground at his feet. Had he maybe just come out of this coffin? Pasha says, it's so cool to hear so much detail about everything instead of dialogue only in the game. Yeah, that's a good point, Fastra. Whoop. Hold on one second. Yeah. There's so much detail, and it's like such a different experience. I look forward to, once the other characters are introduced and whatnot. I'm sure it will be very epic. Boop, boop, boop. All right. He couldn't be certain, but the coffin's padded interior had a human-shaped indentation on it, as if someone had recently stepped out of it. From where he was standing in the general situation, it seemed only natural to assume that someone was him. So why on earth had he been placed inside of a coffin? Hey, Dad, old guy. And hey, Belle. Welcome in. General Lilia mention? I know, so early on. They just mentioned General Lilia. Isn't that crazy, Fastra? Hi, I'm reading Twisted Wonderland, Rose Red Tyrant. He shuddered. What was this place? He wanted to believe that it wasn't a graveyard, but he'd never seen it before and didn't know the first thing about it. Before this, he'd been... right, at school. Yuya massaged his temples to ease the ache in his head and thought back through the hazy memories. He'd left the classroom right after classics in 6th period. He had slipped past classmates heading off to practice and various extracurricular activities and kept going, out the school gates, to head right on home as usual. And then...
Hey, you!
someone called out. Oh, hey, Glutch. You love Twisted Wonderland, Belle? That's awesome! Yeah! Twisted Wonderland's really cool. I'm reading the book right now. And welcome in for the first time, Glutch. I'm Keaton Hurwitz. It was the same voice he'd heard in the darkness. He hurriedly scanned the area, but there was no one around.
Your eyes not work or what?
The voice snarled from below.
I'm right here!
Yuya lowered his gaze. A stuffed animal? He wondered. A gray plush toy was sitting before him. It was of a decent size, and if it were stood up on its back legs, it might have reached up past his knees. The perfect size for a child to hug with their whole body. It had a striking striped ribbon tied around its neck, so maybe it did belong to someone. The insides of its ears and eyes were blue and seemed to shine with a hazy light, while the patch of snowy white fur on its chest was soft and fluffy. What kind of animal was it supposed to be? He'd never seen a creature like this. His face was too round to be a dog, and it was too short and stout to be a cat. Fumbling through the process of elimination, he figured it was probably a weasel, he guessed.
How dare you!
The stuffed animal yelled as it turned its eyes up at him.
I am no weasel! I'm Grim, sorcerer extraordinaire!
It looked like it was going to come flying at him any second. Whoa! It talked? Yuya exclaimed as he jumped back. Maybe it's battery-powered? If it were a mechanical toy, there would be a compartment somewhere on its backside, so Yuya reached out to pick up the stuffed animal to investigate, but it nimbly dodged him as the forked tip of its tail beat at the back of his hand. It was clearly moving with a will of its own. So it's not a stuffed animal? Yuya asked. He frowned, perplexed. It's alive? But how can a weasel be talking?
Listen, you! I'm not a weasel. I am the mighty Grim.
The stuffed creature snapped and then clicked his tongue.
And here I was gonna peel that thing off you while you were sleeping. Way to ruin my plan, human!
He held out his paw like a person, palm up, pink toe beans wriggling back and forth.
Well, whatever. Just give me your uniform and be quick about it.
Uniform? Cocking his head curiously to one side, Yuya looked down at himself and cried out in surprise. What is this? The last he knew, he'd been wearing his school uniform. White shirt, school crest embroidered on the chest pocket, black trousers, an extremely simple, utterly average school outfit. And yet, he was now wrapped in a black robe, even though he had absolutely no recollection of getting changed. The sleeves were embroidered with a complex pattern in gold thread, and silky fabric hung from his belt, completely covering him down to his knees. Reflexively, he lifted the hem and stared. The fabric was as soft as it looked. It practically melted in his hands. He'd been so focused on figuring out where he was that he hadn't even noticed that the clothes he wore were not his own. Even his shoes were different. Why am I... he groaned. When...
Oh, come on! I don't have time for this!
Grim snarled.
Hand it over already!
Whoa! Yuya just barely managed to dodge as Grim lunged at him. The stuffed animal picked himself up off the ground.
You're gonna regret this!
Monster! Yuya yelped, inching backward. Are you trying to bite me? He spotted a door by the stairs and bolted toward it. That's the end of chapter 1. Yeah, Basher said Grim is child size, confirmed. Yeah, when he's up on his hind legs, he's the height of a child. So, you know, do what you will with that information. Yes, Fasha, his Grim's beans. It mentioned his little beans on his foot. That's an interesting detail. Soft ceremonial uniforms, fabric confirmed. Yes, very soft. I'd like to try it on and wear it, perhaps. Belle said, Riddle is my favorite. Let's go. Well, hopefully he shows up soon. This book has him on the cover, so yeah, it works out perfect. Thanks for the heart and Sakura flurry, Belle. And that old guy says, well, since I've already heard Grim, I'm good. Oh, Well, since I've already heard Grim, I'm good. Your Grim is amazing. Well, thank you, that old guy. I'm glad you think so. I'm glad. I was thinking about doing like Riddle and the other characters and Hartlebule's voices, but I totally didn't think about. I didn't expect Grim to show up like right away and be a prominent figure so early on. But it's awesome. It's Grim. Well, thanks for the nice stick. Belle, you have the same book? Well, that's awesome. Have you already read it? Asher says, I love Riddle. I do too. And let's see if he shows up in this next chapter. A dark hallway. A long staircase. Unsettling green light. Was it Malleus glowing? The paintings on the walls spoke to him.
Go right if you want to get out of here.
No. Go left.
Where was he? Why were the paintings talking? Yuya was almost in tears as he stumbled through the unfamiliar building, but no matter how far he ran or where he hid, Grim was able to sniff him out. There were any number of doors lining the corridor, and Yuya desperately yanked at each of them, but not one would open for him. There appeared to be no one else in the entire building, save for him and the creature, Grim. The hallway steadily grew narrower and more complicated until, at last, he found himself trapped in a dead end. Through the dusty glass of a small window there, he could see the moon looming so large it seemed fake, but at least this appeared to be the actual sky and not another chandelier. When he looked down, he saw another moon shimmering there, and he realized it was a reflection of the moon off water, which meant there was a river or ocean or something below him. But it was unclear how deep or how far away it was. And Yuya did not have the courage to break the window and jump out into it. Grim laughed maliciously.
That's it. Nice and quiet now.
Stay away from me! Yuya yelled, shuddering in fear. The neat row of teeth in Grim's open mouth looked razor sharp, like they could easily take a chunk out of him. Grim inched closer, his tail flicking back and forth.
Now, unless you want to get burned to a crisp, take off that...
Ah, I found you at last!
A voice from behind Grim interrupted.
Splendid! But really, you mustn't go wandering off on your own like that.
Grim whirled around and Yuya looked up with a startled gasp. Huh? A man in a curious outfit stood before him in the hallway. The top hat perched on his head and the long coat that hung from his shoulders exaggerated his height and drew the eye. He carried an imposing cane shaped like a key. More conspicuous, however, was the black mask he wore over his pale face, covering his forehead and reaching down below his glittering golden eyes. The mask's nose was sharply pointed, like a bird's beak.
Imagine my surprise when I entered the mirror chamber and discovered one of the gates was open, the man mused languidly. I looked inside and found nothing but an empty shell. To think that you would open your own gate and step out before I could unlock it! Truly unprecedented. However did you manage it?
Please help me! Yuya cried in response. I'm being attacked by a monster!
You think you can stop me or something?
Grim growled as he turned toward the man.
You've got some nerve! I can take both of you easy!
Snap! An inky shadow shot through the air.
Ah!
Grim yelped as a length of black fabric twisted itself around him and bound his arms to his sides in the blink of an eye. The fabric stretched and shrank eerily as if it were alive.
Meow! What's with the sash?
It is not a sash. Consider it tough love.
The masked man turned the tip of the cane in his hand toward the stuffed animal monster.
You were about to use magic there, weren't you? Well, I simply cannot have you running around willy-nilly in this confined space.
Okay, you asked for it.
And there you go, trying to cast your magic again.
The man said coolly as Grim flopped around like a fish out of water at his feet, black fabric covering his mouth now, too.
I really must insist you do not.
Every time the man waved his key-shaped cane, his tough love sash tightened around Grim. The weasel wizard looked like a frog being eaten by a large snake. As Yuya stared in a daze, the man turned to him.
Dear me, yours is quite the poorly trained familiar. School rules do not permit untamed monster companions.
Familiar? Yuya parroted. The man shook his head, exasperated.
Not only do you go and open your gate, but you also leave the mirror chamber, immediately summon a familiar, and go exploring the school. Honestly, you are much more daring than your appearance would suggest.
I don't understand, Yuya stammered. Where am I?
The top floor of the eastern wing, the man replied immediately. The very farthest out from the school, currently used for storage.
Yuya couldn't get a handle on any of this.
School?
The man nodded as if this were natural and obvious and tucked Grim under his arm. He seemed entirely unbothered by Grim's desperate struggling.
Your orientation has already begun. Come now, let's hurry back to the mirror chamber.
My orientation? Yuya stared at him blankly.
Yes,
the man nodded again.
The Academy's traditional orientation. I'm certain you've been looking forward to it.
When Yuya said nothing, the man frowned and gave him a curious look. After a moment's silence, he asked,
Do you actually not know what is happening?
I do not! That is exactly the thing! Yuya was immensely relieved to have someone finally understand what he was going through. From the moment he opened his eyes, he'd been surrounded by unsettling weirdness, as if he were trapped in some kind of nightmare. The floodgates opened, and all the questions that had been building up poured out.
Where am I? What was that coffin? What is this creature? How did I get here?
The man smiled placidly despite the abrupt interrogation.
The time-space teleportation must have addled your memories. Well, these things happen, I suppose. No need to worry. I shall explain it to you while we walk. Truly, my magnanimity is boundless. Magnanimity is boundless.
The man extended a graceful arm to the bewildered Yuya, like a bird spreading its wings, although Grim continued to struggle and flail under his other arm. Flames sparked to life on the candles affixed to the walls. A string of light raced down each side of the hallway, like an invisible runner with a match that was setting flame to the candles. At once, the darkness receded to the corners.
This is Night Raven College,
the man announced with a dramatic flourish.
The most prestigious arcane academy in all of Twisted Wonderland, for students the world over who demonstrate a rare aptitude for magic. I am Dyer Crowley. Having been entrusted with its care by the chairperson, I serve as head mage.
Oh, I get it. This isn't like a nightmare. I'm actually still dreaming, Yuya thought absently as he looked at the smiling man before him. This was all a dream. It was absolutely, without a doubt, a dream. After all, Dyer Crowley's words were too impossible, too unreal.
You stand among their ranks, Crowley continued, as a fledgling sorcerer and a new student at our college.
Alright, I can turn off the fan now. It is no longer warm. That old guy said visitor. Never mind. I'm guessing they left. That old guy says magnanimity. Yeah, magnanimity. I was not ready for that word. Oh, Belle said I'm reading it. That's cool. Well, feel free to read along if you'd like. And welcome in Anos Voldego for the first time. Thanks for the awesome, Belle. And thanks for the 1,000 stars, that old guy. Belle said, I'm going to read with you. I can't wait to hear your riddle voice. I am looking forward to that as well. I do hope I can do him justice. I will do my best take on Riddle. And I hope you enjoy reading with us, Belle. You're in chapter 3. All right. I'll be there soon. Yuya was walking home from school alone when he was forced to stop by a light that was almost never red. It had been almost 6 months since he had started high school, but this was the first time he'd ever been stopped at this crosswalk, despite coming this same way twice a day, every day. It was a narrow road that bicycles rarely traveled, much less cars. He remembered thinking it was weird. The light finally turned green, and he'd just taken a step forward when he heard a strange sound. What's that? He frowned and looked around. Feels like it's getting louder, too. It sounded like someone blowing air through closed lips. He had no memory of anything after that. Thanks for 2,000 stars. Thank you, that old guy.
That was the carriage coming to pick you up, Crowley said casually after hearing Yuya's story. All of the students at Night Raven College go through gates and are brought here in horse-drawn carriages. To this day, we continue our college's time-honored tradition of sending a carriage to meet students. He looked back at Yuya. How do you like that? Pretty impressive, yes? You'd expect nothing less from such a prestigious school, Yuya had a million questions, but given that this was a dream, there was no point in getting too worked up about the details. So he merely asked, What's the gate? The gate that you came out of, was the answer he got. That coffin was the gate? He cried. Yes, Crowley nodded firmly. You come to the school and are reborn a magnificent mage. Quite the fitting concept for youths brimming with such hope, yes? Grim glared at Yuya with resentful eyes from where he was pinned beneath Crowley's arm. Yuya pretended not to notice this as he trailed after Crowley, choosing to go with the flow. He'd apparently come quite a ways in his attempt at escape. They went down any number of staircases before finally arriving at a door he recognized. Now then, Crowley turned to look at him, we have returned to the mirror chamber. Finding you was quite the trial indeed, so I imagine the orientations already reached dorm assignments right about now. He broke off abruptly. Yuya looked up to see that Crowley's pale lips were pulled up into a grin. This should be fun, he cried. Sorry? Yuya stared at him, brow furrowed. I'm simply dying to know which dorm will be chosen for you. The man in the mask clasped his hands together with glee. You are truly a breath of fresh air, opening your gate all by yourself and breaking the student mold. One does naturally harbor certain expectations. Expectations? Yuya gaped. Hang on just a second. Students! Crowley said, voice projecting outwards as the door swung open forcefully, even though he had not so much as laid a finger on it. I've brought your new star, the talk of our little town. Our freshest cohort is together at last. People. So many people. They were back in the room where Yuya had first woken up, but instead of the rows of coffins, there were now rows of individuals. Hundreds of them. And all their eyes turned toward Yuya as he stepped into the room. A heartbeat before he could turn and run, the door closed with a clack. Yuya gasped. The pillars shone with a warm light, making the room much brighter than it had been when he'd first seen it. Everyone gathered within it was wearing the same shadowy robe as Yuya.
wrapped in the same inky black, from the tops of their heads to the tips of their toes. But despite being dressed uniformly, one group in particular drew his eye. They were sitting in an open area toward the back of the corridor, facing the countless others. Oh, headmate, you're finally here, called a boy with white hair adorned with a decorative headband. We're done with the dorm assignments. We were just talking about what we should do now. You were so late, I thought maybe you had a tummy ache. He laughed cheerily. Now, I don't know who this is, but I'm sure I'll find out soon. Kaleem? How do you know it's Kaleem? Does he have white hair? And a decorative headband? That old guy said he sounded like someone blowing air through closed lips. Yeah. Apparently the carriage sounded like that. White hair with the headband? Wow. You're on point, Vastra. Oh, even Belle said Kaleem with white hair. And welcome for the first time, Mama Rama Toma.
Oh, head mage, you're finally here,
called a boy with white hair adorned with a decorative headband.
We're done with the dorm assignments. We were just talking about what we should do now. You were so late, I thought maybe you had a tummy ache.
He laughed cheerfully. Yuya felt a flicker of relief at the boy's bright demeanor.
This must...
This the new kid who opened the gate all by himself?
Ha! A tall, muscular boy snorted.
I mean, I have my doubts.
Ears poking out from long, shiny, dark hair twitched. They were animal ears. Unconsciously, Yuya stared and received a glance in return that turned his blood to ice, so he hurriedly looked away. His famous cheerful laugh. Oh. Yeah. I see. Whoops. The sharp light in the other boy's eyes was reminiscent of a large carnivore. Fasher, who has golden hair that was pulled back? Is that Cater? Is his hair golden? I know his hair is kind of pulled back. I forgot what color his hair is. Man, they got all these... Why aren't they just saying their names, man? I don't know who's this character. I guess Cater, it's orange, though? Oh. Interesting.
I've never heard of anything like that. How'd you do it? Brute force? Or maybe magic?
Asked a person with golden hair that was pulled back as he turned challenging eyes on Yuya. This individual was captivating and gorgeous, and Yuya wouldn't have been surprised about any gender they turned out to be. Their beauty was so astonishing that Yuya would have accepted without question that they were not even human, but rather a magical creature. Apple? Bashra, you're supposed to know these things! I'm counting on you. Belle of the Ball has some comments. Oh! You love my Kaleem voice? Oh, thank you. I'm glad. I try my best to capture the character, or at least what I know about them. Leona! Yeah, I thought it was Jack at first, but when they said the long dark hair, it's got to be Leona. Cater has orange hair, so that's another corroborating the orange hair side of things. Vil, maybe. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like Vil, because it was talking about how beautiful and androgynous he was. Apple had purple hair, so maybe not Apple. Cater isn't described as beautiful like that. So is it Vil with his hair back? If it was magic, then you've got quite the power. We'd love to have you in our dorm. A boy with silver hair said to Yuya, a gentle smile crossing his lips. Now we got a picture on the right page. It's Crowley with Grimm in his little thing. He's like holding Grimm, you can see him. And then it shows some characters. Looks like Riddle, maybe Trey or Azul, Leona, Kaleem. Oh, maybe it's House Wardens. So it has to be, it's Vil, right? Vil has his hair up only in his dorm uniform. Then who is it, Fastra? Wait, but then who would be the silver hair? Who has silver hair? Is it Silver? I hate to be, hit the nail on the head, but I mean, it's gotta be Silver, right? But he's not a house warden. The smile itself was kind, but the narrowed eyes behind his glasses shone with a cool intellect. Azul? What color is Azul's hair? Does anyone know? I know, I have no idea, Stick. It's throwing all these character descriptions, but I don't know who's who. Some of them I know, but some of them it seems kind of hard to tell who it is. Well, I just looked at Ceremonial Vil's card. He kind of has a braid back hairdo with mostly it down. So, but it described it as back. Let me go back to the page. Yeah, pulled back. So strange. Azul has silver hair? Okay, so it's Azul. Oh, I didn't know he had silver hair. I thought it was blue. If it was magic, then you've got quite the power. We'd love to have you in our dorm. A boy with silver hair said to Yuya, a gentle smile crossing his lips. The smile itself was kind, but the narrowed eyes behind his glasses shone with a cool intellect. Every move he made was economical, as if he'd calculated the trajectory of his motions down to the last finger twitch. Right from orientation, all eyes in the school are on you. Maybe you've been reading a bit too much Cautious Hero or some other light novel? A tablet floating amid the hooded students flashed. Apparently, this was the source of the voice, which spoke with a rumbly pitch that felt like crawling through the depths of the earth. The words came too quickly for Yuya to catch them all, but the tone gave him the impression that the tablet was not particularly interested in speaking with anyone anyway. It's already half an hour past the scheduled end of orientation, a boy with red hair announced flatly. We should assign him a dorm immediately, in line with regulations. His voice was unshakably firm. He clearly was not about to allow any further waste of time. The students whispering about Yuya instantly fell silent, but their words lingered in his ears, whether he liked it or not.
Coming in late with the head mage? Is he seriously that great a mage?
Huh. This guy's really going all in right from orientation.
Mm-hmm. Pretty interesting.
Some nerve for a mere human.
Everyone there was keenly interested in Yuya in one way or another, and was clearly expecting great things from him. No, I'm just a guy, he cried desperately, as if to wake himself from this nightmare. All his outburst did was make people look at him again, and the pressure of those countless pairs of eyes was almost enough to crush him to dust. He tried to step away, to retreat, but Crowley gave him a hearty push. He looked over his shoulder and frantically shook his head, but Crowley forced his heavy feet forward, farther into the corridor. Now then, everyone's waiting, he said briskly. Step up to the dark mirror and be quick about it. The dark mirror? Yuya furrowed his brow and then swallowed the question on the tip of his tongue, because the answer was immediately obvious. A large round mirror was enshrined in the corridor ahead, looking magnificent with a shiny gold frame. A crown sat on its peak, and below it, twisting snakes were carved into the frame, encircling the glass. Just like the first gate Yuya had seen, The mirror was hanging in the air, suspended by nothing. Urged on by Crowley, he peered into the glass, and a boy with short black hair appeared on its surface. Eyebrows, nose, mouth, ears, all were utterly average. Not one thing distinguished the boy in any way. If pressed to highlight a notable feature, Yuya would have said that the boy's eyes were perhaps a bit rounder than average, but even this did not conflict with his other features. The roundness of his eyes blended in with the rest so well that it would have been forgotten the second anyone looking at this face, glanced away from it. Put nicely, the face had a comfortable familiarity to it. Put not so nicely, it was mediocre. A sort of everyman's face, which, if encountered in the morning, would be forgotten by evening. It was the face Yuya saw in the mirror every day. What was the point of making him look at it now? He had just opened his mouth to ask Crowley this question when the mirror abruptly flashed, and green flames filled the glass. Reflexively, he looked over his shoulder. There was nothing there. The fire was only inside the mirror. As if to quench that fire, a haunting face appeared in the center of the mirror. Yuya couldn't tell if it was a mask, a doll, or an actual person. It was just a face. He gaped in amazement as he realized the mirror was showing someone other than himself. And then that someone spoke in a deep, masculine voice.
State your name,
the mirror commanded. Yuya Kuroki, Yuya stammered.
Yuya Kuroki.
He felt a tickle deep down inside. It was a curious sensation, like someone was tugging on the inside of his ribs. The man in the mirror had no eyeballs, only eye sockets gaping emptily. Yuya couldn't tell what he was focused on, and had the distinct sensation that the man was looking at all of him, into the deepest depths of his mind, leaving no stone unturned. The mirror said,
The nature of your soul is...
Meow!
A cry interrupted the man in the mirror. Yuya looked back to see Grim break free from where he was held under Crowley's arm.
Ah! There he goes!
Crowley sighed.
I was too focused on the dorm assignment.
If you thought you could keep me out of the game, you got another thing coming!
Grim spun around neatly in the air and dropped to the ground. Standing tall on 2 feet, he threw his head back.
Meow!
He cried, and a sea of flames spread out before him. Grim was shooting fire from his mouth. As he kept exhaling for a seemingly impossible length of time given the small size of his body, the corridor instantly became a raging inferno. The flames the same pale color as Grim's eyes, and exuding a dazzling heat. Yuya automatically covered his face with his arms. It's so hot. It was fire. Of course it would be hot to the touch. Of course it would burn. This sent a shock through Yuya. This isn't a dream, he realized abruptly.
So, you're trying to steal my thunder and get all the glory, huh? Well, you're way out of your league, buddy!
Grim crowed. Before Yuya knew it, he was alone with Grim in the middle of a small circle of flames.
You'll have to fight me for it!
Fight? Yuya asked as he stared blankly at the animal. Me?
Yup!
Grim nodded firmly.
My plan was to switch places with you while all them dodos were sleeping. And then you went and ran off on me. But if I take you down, they'll see that I'm the one with the real power. And there'll be an opening for a new student.
His large mouth arced upward, his fangs glittering.
That seat's as good as mine! I'm a genius!
We don't have to fight for it, Yuya said, nearly in tears, holding out both hands as if offering Grim a silver platter with his school enrollment on it. You can totally have my spot. I don't even know what's going on here. But Grim paid him absolutely no mind and drew another deep breath, filling his stomach. Yuya turned and tried to run, only to feel a burst of heat scorch his back.
You won't play,
Grim snapped.
then I'll get this game started.
Wait, Yuya pleaded. Stop! Don't! I surrender!
Here we go.
Don't! Yuya squeezed his eyes shut. Snap! He heard the air crack around him, and then everything went quiet. Even the roar of the flames had faded to nothing. Ever so timidly, Yuya opened his eyes to find the fire frozen around him, crystallized in its attempt to devour his surroundings, almost as if they had been forgotten by time. Tiny sparks became shards of ice and tumbled to the ground. Both of you, said a male voice. Crunch, crunch. He heard the sound of feet stepping on the ice, moving toward him. You seem to think you can do whatever you please here. The red-headed boy appeared in front of Yuya from between two chunks of ice. He was the one who'd been annoyed by their late entrance earlier. Yuya had thought he was the taller one at first glance, but now his small physique dominated the entire room. His presence was threatening, the look on his face frightening in its anger. I will tolerate no more of this nonsense, the boy declared, his voice entirely devoid of emotion. Yuya cowered in abject fear, but Grim was either stupider or braver, and he returned the boy's glare with utmost confidence. Grim growled.
Another someone getting in my way.
A large ice pillar stood where Grim had been only moments earlier. He raced up it leisurely on all four paws and laughed from up high.
Listen up! I'm gonna knock all of you flying with my magic extraordinaire! He shouted. So you better...
Are you ready for your sentence? The boy asked. Huh? Yuya frowned and looked at the boy. Something strange was happening. Grim also seemed to have guessed that something was off. Like Yuya, he stared at the boy with one hand in the air. Sentence first, verdict afterward. Incredible power. Yes, power. Not heat, cold, light, or wind. This was the only way Yuya could describe the overwhelming force that swirled like a vortex around the red-headed boy. Yuya simply stood there, rooted to the spot. He didn't try to run away. Not because he thought he was any match for this force, but rather because he didn't know what else to do in the face of this enormous amount of energy. He felt like the nearly visible power might explode if he so much as moved a muscle. He was so frightened he could hardly stand it. The red-headed boy's arm dropped down toward Grim. Off with your head! The boy shouted. An arrow of light shot out at Grim. There was a brief flash, then the arrow transformed into a large red and black shackle. The second the open end touched Grim's neck, it snapped shut with a heavy clank.
What in the...
Grim shook his head, but the shackle held fast.
You're supposed to be all tough, but your magic's a flop! Don't even try and collar me! I'll burn it right off!
Yuya managed to cover his face with his hands this time, but all he heard was a faint wheeze. Huh? Yuya wondered as he timidly opened his eyes and saw Grim blowing on his own hands, baffled.
Yeah! What gives?
Grim scowled.
My fire ain't working!
Ah, good show as always, Riddle, said the boy with the glasses as he applauded from where he stood on the opposite side of the ice. The rest of the students were all looking at them, too. They seemed like they were not so much simply watching what happened, but rather appreciating the artistry. The boy with the glasses laughed cheerily, paying little mind to Grim. Your signature spell locks down any magic, he said to the red-headed boy. It's really quite handy, isn't it? I've just got to have it.
I mean, I've just got to have respect for it.
Locks down magic?
Grim yelped.
Exactly,
The red-headed boy, Riddle, said, as he grabbed Grim by the scruff of his neck and lifted him up.
until I deign to remove that collar, you won't be using any magic.
Yuya noticed several pillars of ice neatly arranged around Grim, blocking any escape route. They must have deliberately missed Grim with the earlier ice magic attack to guide him to this dead end and render him unable to use magic. Grim kicked and flailed against his sad shackle.
It's no use, Riddle told him. You're not but a pet cat now.
Meow what?
Grim snarled.
I ain't nobody's pet nothing!
Oh, you've nothing to worry about there. I certainly have no interest in having such a rude and violent pet. Unlike a certain someone, I am no fool.
Riddle glared at Yuya, who was watching the argument with a pale face.
You! What?
Yuya replied, his voice a little too loud and forceful.
You really make a mess of things,
Riddle said, his voice far too powerful for the slender frame it came from.
First you march into the orientation late, with your head held high, and then you nearly set the mirror chamber on fire?
Overwhelmed, Yuya flinched and shrank as the red-headed boy continued to press him.
First of all, and above all else, this is a violation of the Queen of Hearts rules! You must know Rule 23!
Hearts? Yuya stammered.
Rules?
Your ignorance is honestly stupefying, Riddle told him.
Do you really not know the Queen of Hearts is Rule 23? One must never bring a cat to a formal affair? No.
Yuya shook his head quickly.
Incredible! Have you ever cracked a book open in your life? I'm sorry.
Riddle's expression alone was enough to make anyone looking upon him shake in their boots. An almost murderous rage colored his face, a blue vein throbbing violently on his forehead. Yuya had serious doubts about his chances for survival if he said this was his first time hearing of any such rule. Instead, he bowed until he was nearly prostrate on the ground.
I assume you are attempting to flaunt your magical abilities through the use of your familiar, but this is strictly prohibited, Riddle said coldly. It seems as though I will have to personally make you aware of the rules of this academy if we ever manage to finish this orientation.
He whirled around resolutely like a robot, his robe flapping behind him.
I will tell you this. It matters not a whit to me which dorm is selected for you. Given that you've broken the Queen of Hearts rules, I must carry out my duty as the House Warden of Heartslabule.
Riddle's footsteps echoed as he crossed the mirror chamber. As he approached the door, still holding Grim up, several other boys raced over to him.
Hey!
Grim yelled.
What are you going to do to me?
I'm not going to do anything to you, Riddle sniffed. I'm throwing you out. That collar will be removed after a period of time. If you can't behave yourself, then it's back to your nest with you.
Riddle thrust Grim out as the students gathered around them. They bent at the knee and accepted the squirming bundle of fur. All of their faces were marked with painted symbols. Diamonds, clubs, spades, hearts.
You lot! Remove this insolent fellow from campus, Riddle demanded. Yes, House Warden!
They chorused as one.
Curse it! Curse you! Don't think you've seen the last of me!
Grim protested desperately, no magic coming from his mouth as he was yanked up by both of his arms.
You fools better remember my name! 'Cause I'm gonna go down in the annals of magic history! Just you wait!
The door closed, cutting his shouts short. In that last moment, his eyes were full of regret. Watching from a safe distance, Yuya thought Grim looked like a captured weasel and felt a little sorry for him, but there was nothing he could do now. Not to mention that it seemed like Yuya would do better to concern himself with his own situation. Suddenly, something was pushed up against his chin and he choked. There is a flash of red in the corner of his eye.
The decision of which dorm you belong to will reveal to us your true nature. Now then, let's have you show us this great power of yours.
Riddles smiled deliberately with his mouth alone, the smile not reaching his eyes, and Yuya understood that this was a challenge. Although Riddle moved with an adult calm, Yuya guessed that they were basically the same age. His still plump cheeks were flushed, and he exuded energy and confidence. His pride as a powerful fighter was written all over his body. He would not flinch in the face of any opponent, no matter how strong.
Do it!
Riddle snapped.
Right!
Yuya answered as he turned toward the dark mirror, and the man appeared once again. He acknowledged Yuya standing before him, and spoke the same words he had before.
Yuya Kuroki, the nature of your soul is...
Gulp. He heard the sound of someone swallowing hard from nowhere in particular, and realized the sound hadn't come from just one person. Everyone assembled before the dark mirror had gasped, waiting with bated breath for the dark mirror to continue. Their interest, expectation, envy, all of it danced on Yuya's nerves and weighed him down. He clenched, shaking hands into fists. He had only one wish. Please, please, nothing happened, please! He didn't know whether his prayer was heard. The dark mirror spoke again.
Unclear to me.
What? Asked Riddle as his eyes grew round in surprise. Next to him, Crowley was equally surprised.
Dark mirror, what did you just say?
He queried.
I sense no magical power in this one. Soundless, colorless, shapeless, utterly vacant,
the mirror continued. The chatter in the mirror chamber gradually grew louder.
Therefore, no dorm would be appropriate.
No dorm? Crowley cried. The students standing around looked at each other. Yuya could hear quiet laughter among the murmuring voices. When he turned around, the group of boys who'd spoken to Crowley when he and Yuya entered the mirror chamber were snickering at each other.
Well, well!
The boy with silver hair pushed up his glasses and said to the boy with the golden hair next to him,
This is quite the disappointment,
So, who was it who first said we got this amazingly powerful student this year?
The boy with golden hair demanded.
The head mage,
the silver-haired boy responded.
There's a recording of the whole thing in the log. Definitely him.
The tablet flashed and a video played showing Crowley declaring,
All of which is to say, our very special new student stepped out on his own. I shall now go and seek him out. This is very exciting, everyone!
The screen showed Crowley exiting the mirror chamber. When all of the students in the school glared at the head mage, he hurriedly waved his hands in defensive protest.
It's simply not possible for the black carriage to receive a human who cannot use magic, he insisted. From my understanding, the student selection process has not erred once in its century of existence.
Well, don't get too down about it,
the boy with white hair said, trying to cheer Crowley up.
There's a first time for everything. I'm telling you, that is absurd!
Crowley looked to Yuya for salvation.
Wait, you brought along that familiar, did you not? You must have magic, then!
Familiar? Yuya repeated. Do you mean that creature Grimm?
Yes!
I didn't bring him with me, he said, hurriedly shaking his head from side to side. He had already told Crowley this 1,000,000 times. He was there when I woke up. I've never seen that creature in my life.
Oh, is that so?
Crowley frowned.
You really should have said so sooner.
Yuya held his tongue, although he dearly wanted to snap that Crowley had simply gone ahead and assumed that Grimm was his familiar. But the disappointment in the room came through loud and clear in everyone's eyes and sighs. He just wanted to make it out of this experience in one piece. All he could do was hang his head and apologize. Riddles snorted in laughter.
The mess you've made of the orientation is truly unforgivable, but I take back what I said earlier. I have no intention of scolding you any further. You're an outsider, after all. Riddle looked defeated somehow, or maybe he was the slightest bit sympathetic toward Yuya. Either way, he immediately turned his gaze on Crowley, so Yuya couldn't tell what he was really thinking.
Head mage, may we please return to the dorms?
Riddle asked.
We have the new student tour. Ah, we're already 20 minutes late!
Oh, yes, right. How about you go and do that?
Crowley clapped his hands together as if this were a most welcome change of subject.
I hereby declare that orientation has concluded. House wardens, please escort your students back to the dorms.
The ones who moved at the word house wardens were the boys who had first spoken up when Crowley and Yuya had arrived at the mirror chamber. Some held their heads high and others moved lazily. Whatever their reaction to Crowley's command, the new students all followed their direction. These house wardens were clearly leaders of some kind. Although most of the students followed the house warden's instructions and automatically grouped together, some looked around anxiously, searching the room with perplexed looks. Noticing this, Crowley cocked his head to one side and asked,
Where is Malleus Draconia? I don't see him anywhere.
The house wardens blinked.
Now that you mention it, the boy with animal ears laughed. I knew I was feeling good for some reason. So that little lizard's not here.
We forgot to invite him again.
The boy with the golden hair sighed. But rather than appearing frustrated or annoyed, he merely shrugged his shoulders, so Yuya couldn't really tell how serious he was. It seemed that only the boy with the white hair was actually concerned. His eyebrows pulled together into a V as he scratched his head and said,
Again? Poor Malleus, we did him wrong.
Honestly, you only just realized he's not here? A small-statured boy asked in a deep voice as he appeared seemingly out of nowhere.
Gah! Crowley jumped in surprise. Van Rouge! Where did you come from?
As before, there was no official notice about the orientation. I went out to look for him in a hurry there, but I couldn't find him yet again. With his vivid pink hair tucked into his hood and wide, almost tearful eyes that were red like raspberries, this Van Rouge boy was as striking as any of the house wardens. Van Rouge laughed. Ah, poor Malleus. I just hope he's not angry.
Sorry,
the boy with the white hair said.
We weren't trying to leave Malleus out or anything.
He's the problem here, though,
the boy with the golden hair interjected.
I mean, he's not exactly the easiest person to talk to.
Don't say that,
Van Rouge replied. We're all school chums, aren't we? Don't overthink it. Just be friends with him. The white-haired boy nodded firmly, while the beautiful golden-haired boy shook his head in exasperation. The other students looked around nervously. Van Rouge winked playfully. Well, not to worry, new students. In the place of House Warden Malleus Draconia, I will lead you to the Diasomnia dorm as the deputy House Warden. The room burst into excited whispers.
So the House Warden for Diasomnia is the Malleus Draconia.
It's true? He really does go to Night Raven College?
Yikes. I totally don't want to run into that guy.
Yuya figured this Malleus Draconia person must be famous if the sound of his name alone inspired this much fear. Fasher says, Azul has silver hair. Silver with a kind of purple tint. Okay, I knew there was like some sort of blue or purple in there, right? I was kind of right. Styx had more comments in Iram. Alright, I'll get to those in a second. Oh, Felicity! You are head top! Yes, Fatstra, he used it on Grim and then picked him up and carried him. Thanks for the comments, noticed that old guy. And Fastra says, Lilia! Can you believe Van Rouge is here, Fastra? He is here, and he's acting as Deputy House Warden. Belle said, I'm 200% sure it's Vil. Yep, it was Vil. Because they were talking about house wardens and a beautiful one. Azul. It's Vil. Azul. Yep. Silver. In the anime, Vil has some of his hair up. Oh, well, what do you know? Did you know that, Fastra? Some of his hair is up. Idia! Yeah, Idia on his tablet. He only spoke a little bit, but I'm glad we got to see him. I like Idia. And yes, there was quite a lot of Riddle. He got very angry. Lilia. Yes, it's Lilia. Oh, thanks for the rose stick, and thanks for 3,000 stars. Belle says my 5'2" twin is Riddle. Are you both? You're both 5'2". That's crazy. That's awesome. Riddle's voice is way higher than the voice you're giving him in the anime. Oh, I can. Yeah, I'm open to constructive criticism of my voices. I'm definitely not an expert by any means, but I'm trying my best. In the anime, Riddle is 17. It's very young. Wait, his name is Lilia in the anime? Yeah, I think they're just calling him Van Rouge for now. It's like until we know his actual name. But yes, it is Lilia. Indeed, has shown up. He just appeared out of nowhere. No, you are an expert. Well, thanks, that old guy. The boy with the animal ears clicked his tongue.
I should have gone home to bed instead of wasting time at this orientation.
He waved a hand.
Savannah Claus students, follow me.
Children, the tablet said, sounding deeply annoyed. I'll send the campus map to your phones. Find your way to the dorm. The light disappeared from its screen. The other boys in the room called out to one another and chatted as they sorted themselves out. Amid the commotion, Yuya heard Riddle's clear voice call out, Harstobule dorm students! Right face! Right! First step with your left foot! Line up behind the deputy house warden! Their earlier enthusiasm fizzling out, the students neatly turned their backs on Yuya and marched out of the mirror chamber on quick feet, leaving only Yuya, Crowley, and the dark mirror in silence. It was Crowley who broke the silence.
I am sorry about all of that.
Oh, Yuya said.
No, I'm sorry I couldn't be what you were hoping for.
It was Crowley who had simply assumed he was a new student and pushed his expectations on a reluctant Yuya. This whole fracas was something that Yuya had been dragged into against his will, and yet in the face of Crowley's obvious and utter disappointment, Yuya felt the urge to run away, as if he himself was somehow to blame. Crowley sighed, clearly disheartened. Yuya couldn't help but wonder how he was able to express such emotion when the majority of his face was covered by that mask.
I thought we might finally be successful this year if an impressive new student to rival Draconia were to arrive at the school.
I don't really understand,
Yuya said timidly, in a desperate effort to keep from discouraging Crowley further. Perhaps Crowley felt better after wallowing in his emotions for a moment.
I suppose not, he said, and cleared his throat. Let us turn our minds to other considerations, then.
Yeah, let's, Yuya thought to himself. I'll be in real trouble here otherwise. They were finally getting to what actually mattered to him. So then, he said, what should I do here? Crowley pressed a finger to his chin.
This is a most unfortunate turn of events. You do understand that I cannot very well admit a student with no magical ability to my academy.
But worry not! It does seem that this was an error on our part, so we will use the power of the Dark Mirror to return you to your home immediately. This was quite the catastrophe,
He turned toward the Dark Mirror and raised his arms. Lazy flames erupted in the mirror, and a man rose up in the center once more.
Now then, O Dark Mirror, return this soul to where it belongs, Crowley commanded.
At last, he would be able to go home, Yuya told himself with a sigh of relief. Then he heard the mirror's words echo in his mind.
There is no such place.
What? Yuya thought, startled.
There is no place in the world where this soul belongs.
What did you say?
Crowley asked as Yuya stood, speechless.
That's not possible. Wait, didn't I say that earlier as well? My, but today is a veritable cavalcade of impossible phenomena!
Crowley repeated his command, but no matter how many times he demanded the mirror return Yuya to his home, the mirror's response was the same. Nowhere. There was no place for Yuya to go home to. That was the only thing the man in the mirror would say.
It doesn't know where he belongs, so it can't send him there.
Crowley sighed at such length that clouds appeared on the mirror's glass.
What was your name?
Yuya Kuroki, Yuya replied promptly.
Yua?
Crowley frowned.
Yua?
Yuya said his name again, but apparently it was too difficult for Crowley to replicate.
What an odd name,
he said finally.
It's a bit hard to pronounce. Do you mind if I call you you?
Yuya nodded his agreement, and the head mage grew thoughtful.
Tell me, you, he said, from what land do you hail?
I'm from Nihon, Yuya told him.
Nikon?
Japan. Yuya tried the English name of his country, but that apparently did not click for Crowley either.
Japan?
The lines on Crowley's forehead grew even more pronounced. Yuya had been speaking Japanese this whole time, and no one had had any trouble understanding him up until this point, so there was really no point in trying with English. But wait, was he really speaking Japanese? The words were leaving his mouth without any extra thought, and he wasn't having any issue understanding what anyone else said, but when he thought about it, he did feel like something was slightly off. The words he was thinking and the movements of his own mouth didn't match. I am... His mouth was opening and closing more often than required to say just those words, but the words still sounded the way they always did when they reached his ears. He thought he was speaking the language he knew, and somehow his ears and mouth were naturally translating into a language he didn't know. He frowned in consternation.
I'm intimately acquainted with the origins of the students who come to Night Raven College from all over the world,
Crowley declared.
But I am not familiar with this Nikon or Japan or what have you that you speak of. This is perhaps...
He hesitated as he pressed a hand to his forehead.
You may very well have come here from another world.
Another world? Yuya parroted in disbelief. Crowley nodded, his face deadly serious. Despite Crowley sounding like he was telling a story straight from the pages of a manga or novel, Yuya found himself nodding at these astounding words. The moment he'd seen magic, the second he'd seen Grimm, maybe even from the moment he'd opened his eyes for the first time in this room, he'd had a feeling that he wasn't in Japan, or even on Earth. This was a different world. At some point, he had emerged into a world called Twisted Wonderland, where magic was a matter of course.
But,
he cried,
but how would I...
Crowley shook his head to say that he didn't know the reason himself.
To think that the Dark Mirror would call up a student from another world. I've never heard of such a thing. I would like to know more if possible. Do you have any personal items that would allow me a greater understanding of you or the world you come from, you?
Greater understanding? Yuya asked.
Yes,
Crowley nodded.
A driver's license, for instance.
When I woke up, I was already in the gate. I was carrying a bag, but it disappeared with my clothes. I had my student ID in my wallet, but... Yuya patted himself down, frantically.
My phone! I had my smartphone in my pocket, but it's gone now too. Incredible! Crowley cried, eyes widening. So you have smartphones in your parallel world as well.
I am also surprised by this, Yuya said cautiously. The first thing you ask about is a driver's license? He had assumed they'd have more fantastical things in this world, given the magic it contained. Crowley looked off into the distance thoughtfully. All of which is to say you have no personal effects on you. This is a predicament. Yuya really did have nothing, but when Crowley pointed it out, he felt cut adrift all over again. How is he supposed to live in a world where he didn't even have a single shoe to his name? It seemed that Crowley was also at a loss. It doesn't appear that we will come up with a solution to your situation anytime soon, no matter how we might rack our brains. At any rate, you can stay at Night Raven College for tonight. You'll let me stay the night? Yuya cried, a surge of relief washing over him. Yes, Crowley nodded. I am loath indeed to expel you in this situation. There is a vacant building on campus not currently in use. You may stay there. That's great. You may call me Head Mage, you. Head Mage, Yuya repeated. Thank you so much. Before he knew it, he had taken both of Crowley's gloved hands in his own, overwhelmed with gratitude. There's a good boy. Wonderful. My kindness truly knows no bounds. Crowley smiled playfully. Now then, strike while the iron is hot, as they say. I shall take you to the dorm straight away. Please do follow me. And that is the end of Chapter 2. We arrive on Chapter 3. And that is where I must end, as I have to go to work. Sadly, we must end there. Vasher said, yeah, I knew about Ville's hair. Look up Ceremonial Robes Ville, and you'll see what I meant about his hair, with only part of it being back in braids. Alright, I'll look it up. Boop, beep, boop, beep. Oh yeah, it is somewhat up. Yeah, it's nice. Alright, I see. And I like your riddle voice. The English one Paul Casher does is good, but yours is good too. I just got a good left wrist pop. I'm glad you like it, Fastra. I'm trying to kind of... My main thing was just trying to like... You know, because he's Hane Natsuki, I was trying to like imagine like a... You know, Tanjiro type voice. But a much different personality. So I try to make him, you know, very... and according to the rules. So that's kind of where it comes from. I just imagine him, because I don't know, his voice is hard for me to like categorize. He's just kind of like, off with your head though. You know, like, oh, boku wa, and just kind of like normal talking. So it's not too far from my normal voice that I use for him. But I'm glad you like it, Fastra, and I hope you enjoyed me reading this book. Let's see, Belle, thanks. Wait. Belle said, I actually know what dorm I would be in. What dorm? I'm thinking for me it would definitely be Ignahide. 100%. Belle said, oh, thanks for the OMG. And thank you for 2. Thank you very much, Belle. Belle says, there's another difference in the anime. In the anime, it's Ace and Deuce that start calling Yukin you. Oh, instead of Crowley giving him the nickname. Very interesting. Little differences here and there. Yeah, it's bound to happen. There's always, you know, differences in between versions, but it's interesting to hear about. Interesting to know what the differences are. That old guy, thanks for the wave. Belle says, my working theory is a twisted Wonderland universe taking place in a different dimension. Oh, takes place. Yeah, I could see that. A different dimension. So then that's where you came from our dimension and went to theirs. Have a good shift at work. Thank you, Stick. I will do my best. I would be in Scaravia, Kalim's dorm. Nice. I like Scaravia. I haven't read the book about it yet, though. I think it's book 4. So I have yet to know much about it. But I do like Kalim and Jamil. They're pretty cool. And I look forward to hearing more of them and reading more of this book. Thank you all for joining me reading this book here. Yeah, I'm glad we got to a good stopping point right as I needed to leave. I was worried we'd have to leave in the middle of a scene or something, but I'm glad we got to finish a chapter. Thank you for reading this. Thank you, Fastra. And I enjoyed reading it, even if I may not have done the best on the voices. You know, it's still fun to read and try to do voices for everyone. And yeah, it's really interesting hearing, you know, like you said, so much detail for the story instead of just dialogue. So you get it's so much different of a feel. So yeah, I'll definitely be reading more of this in the future. We got to chapter 3, page 49. So yeah, we'll definitely be continuing that later. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a good one. You did great on the voices. Well, thank you, that old guy. I'm glad you think so. Have a good night. I mean, good rest of your day. It's only 4 p.m. for me, so not night, but afternoon. It's so fun to listen to. I am glad you enjoyed it, that old guy. I'm glad you thought it was fun. So I'm gonna get ready for work now. Have a good day to you, Belle. Thank you for hanging out as we read. Bye-bye!